Hi everyone, it's Fiona here from fionamarks.com, and I'm so happy to be beginning this series with you about astrology and parenting. This has been something I've wanted to talk about maybe since the first or second week of the first term of the first year of my astrology apprenticeship. I think there's just so much that astrology can give to help us understand our role as parents. And it's just taken, I wanted to obviously go through the whole program, um, see the multi-layered ways that astrology can shed light on parenting. And I'm super excited to begin putting it together. And not only that, to be talking it over with a parenting coach. So these sessions that I'm recording now, these are like primers. They're a prelude to my conversation with Amy, and they're here for us to begin our thought process about astrology and parenting, so that when we have that conversation with the parenting coach, we've got a background, a shared understanding to be the fertile ground of our conversation. And so the topics that I have selected, I'm going to meet with the coach 4 times in February. So I have selected 4 topics. And first of all, we're going to start with parenting styles. And that's what I'm going to speak with you about today. And then second topic, children are a source of joy, something that, children are a blessing. And we hear this all the time. But does astrology bear that out? And astrology has some really interesting ways of looking at what your relationship with your children will be and how they will feature in your areas of life and what they'll be associated with. And from that, they may very well be associated with joy. However, they may be associated with many other things as well. So I think that's a really fun topic for us to look at. I think astrology has a lot to share about temper tantrums or behavioral patterns that are in our children that I think before you're a parent, you can really have the idea of nature versus nurture, and obviously of how important nurture is. And as parents, we want to be conscious and having a helpful impact on our children's lives and their personalities. And then you have children and you realize that they come with a whole lot of stuff already that that your nurturing doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the way that they approach life or the way that they approach problems, or certain stimulants cause particular responses. So let's examine some astrological context for temper tantrums and behavioral problems. And for the fourth topic, I have put here each child's relationship with each parent. There's so much richness in that Brihat Parashastra approach of our relationship with the things in our lives. And parents, the way the child feels towards the parent is no different. There's a lot of richness we can gain from looking at how an individual child relates to the mother, their mother, and how they relate to their father. So there's a ruled by different indicators, and therefore we're having this rich family environment where each child is having an individual relationship with the mother, an individual relationship with the father, and all the children have nuances of that for themselves as well. Whereas in astrology, the parent, has in some ways one relationship with all children. Of course, it's nuanced, and I'm looking forward to talking all of that over with you. So these are the 4 topics that I've suggested. There's so many other things, and I've included them at the end of the presentation here as ideas for our next conversation. But let's begin with parenting styles. So this is probably the topic that was in my mind the first or second week of the first term of the first year of the apprenticeship was that in Vedic astrology, planets are classified as malefic or benefic. And this is something with Vedic astrology, is that it doesn't pull any punches about its vocabulary. So whereas Western astrology has, or modern astrology has, that approach that everything is helpful in astrology, everything is teaching us something, it's all for our greater good, and therefore the language is very positive in general. Vedic astrology is equally, I think, um, encouraging to embrace one's life as it is, but it expects you to be able to not only look at the good things but also the bad things. So it doesn't, like I say, pull any punches about the language. And right up front, one of the first things you're exposed to in Vedic astrology is that planets are malefic or benefic. Now, this doesn't actually mean that there's anything wrong with a malefic planet or that there's anything right with a benefic planet. So that's kind of where that value judgment, we have to step back from a little bit, because really what it's saying is that malefics help us in the chart by challenging us to achieve things. They don't give anything for free. If we want to achieve in that area, we need to put in the hard work. And that planetary energy, that's one of the malefics, if it's one of the malefics, it's going to stand there and say, well, show me you can do it. Prove to me that you've got it. And we can respond very well to that energy. And there are some things in life that really need that energy. And you think about one's courage to overcome adversity, it is the inverted commas malefics in our chart who are preparing us for that and helping us know what we're really capable of by testing us and putting us in situations that bring out things that we didn't even know that we could do. So that's the role of malefics in the chart. And benefics help us by supporting our progress. They are a bit more like the cheerleaders. They already think we can do everything. They just want to make life a little bit easier for us. And in a way, you can feel a kind of softness in the benefics, that they just want to ease over any bumps and struggles and be there with that helping hand, or giving you a foot up so that you can jump over a wall or whatever it is. They want to see what they can do to contribute to your success. So this is a fundamental difference between planets in someone's chart, that when you're a Vedic astrologer, it goes with the territory that you're going to look at these planets with this kind of context. And immediately I began thinking about parenting, that as parents, we can be supportive cheerleader type of parents, and or we can be in Portuguese, they have one of these favorite words, exigente, which is, I guess, demanding, that we're consistent and we expect our children to learn and to grow. And, we want to see them applying what they're being exposed to in their life and becoming more courageous and more confident. So I wonder which parenting style you feel more reflects your own nature as a parent. And one of the big differences between these planets, this category of planets, malefic and benefic, is this concept of Ista and Kasta, which you don't have to remember, you don't have to refer back to, but I'm including it here because I also think it adds to the richness of this classification. And it is that when a planet is classified as malefic, that is because when bad things happen with that planet, the planet gives it out into the environment. It gives out its kashta. And I guess this is a little bit like the parent who, when you see that rules are not being followed, or that the room is getting messy, or the house is getting messy, or things are not up to standard, that parenting style is to extrovert that and to call the person to meet the standard. And so that's that malefic thing of when bad things are happening, malefic planets give out their kasta. People know about it. However, in contrast to that, the benefic planets, when bad things are happening, they absorb that inside. So they've got that capacity to see that things are not maybe going as well as they should, but they can absorb that inside themselves. And therefore, the contrast is that with the Ishta, when things are going well, malefic, benefic planets give out their Ishta. So they praise and they share their smiles and their hugs and their happiness, and everything's wonderful and it's all going really well. And that's what's get extroverted and shared into the family space. Whereas for the malefic planets, the idea is that they absorb their own Ishta. So it belongs to them. And I think that this is also an interesting thing with parenting is around praise and discipline. What's your balance with that? So I think, astrology gives us these great terms to look at already. So what do you find? Is it better to have a challenging home environment or a supportive one? And I remember an amazing client that I used to massage, a bit like a, Top Gun kind of type A personality, literally fighter pilot. By the time I was working with him, an extremely successful property tycoon, and actually entering retirement. So, struggling with that transition. Anyway, enough about that. But his philosophy with his children was that he wanted them to experience as much adversity as possible while he was their parent and could help them and could guide them and give them what they needed to overcome those things, but through challenge. So his whole approach was to challenge his children as much as possible because that's what he saw his role was. And it kind of makes sense, right? Why don't you want to experience the worst while you're in the safety of your home family environment? So let's have that as an extreme, one end of the extreme of the continuum. And then you could imagine that another end of the extreme of the continuum, that the home environment should be that safe harbor away from the world. The world is challenging enough, school, bullies, peers, there's enough going on there that in the home environment as a parent, we just want to soothe and ease and give the person confidence by making their experience in this safe home place easier and warmer, softer. So I wonder what you find works in your family. And does this, in fact, encourage acceptance for us of our partner's parenting style? Because one of the things that I noticed when we became a family was how much I appreciated this other adult who came at things from a different perspective than me. And obviously at times that's challenging. And, it feels like sometimes the main problem, is between the parents of which style is going to come out on top. But you kind of realize as you're going through that process that there's something, yin yang about the whole thing, that really these children's, their brains as half the mother and half the father, as when we're talking about really young children, they're really so open to our brainwaves and so open to our energetic way of being, that there's a kind of wisdom in having this yin and yang approach, which traditionally is the male and female approach, or maybe traditionally it's the malefic and the benefic. But you can see how that is part of the design, that not only do we give this genetic material from yin and yang, but we are exposing the child to a yin and yang or a malefic benefic approach to discipline or the family environment to parenting. So perhaps it encourages to accept this parent who looks at parenting perhaps in a different way than we do. And a final thought, just in this primer, to give our coach an idea of what we'd like to speak about during this session, is that obviously then that interacts with your own child's astrological profile, because they're going to have their own malefic benefic balance going on. They're going to have their own approach to Ista and Kasta. Maybe they're going to give out everything that's frustrating, and it's just invades the entire auditory environment of the home as this person gives out their kasta. Or this person is going to be the kind of child who takes in all of their kasta in their own world, is absorbing everything, and is maybe sensitive and gentle in the home environment. And how does that interact with your own parenting style? And does that make you parent differently for different children? And is one capable of doing that? Do you notice some of your children respond well to one approach and some to the other? Do you try to do a mixture of all? And that's really what I would like to leave us with today, is as we get ready for these sessions with the parenting coach, we're talking about the synergies between astrology and parenting. Why don't we contemplate in the lead up to that call, how would you classify your own parenting style astrologically? Can you recognize yourself? And what about your partner? And what about your own parents? I'm sure as we reflect on our own childhood, this classification of malefic benefic might be clear with our parents as well. How do your children respond? And do you use different styles for different children? And how does that work? Does it make the struggles of co-parenting worth it? And when you parent alone, is it possible to do both astrological styles? So what is that experience like? If you are the main parent, do you feel called upon to try to cover the whole continuum? And how have you found that journey? Is it possible? Do you have a preference, and do you operate outside of that preference? So I'd love to hear your thoughts about these things as we get ready to have, I'm hoping, a very rich and nourishing discussion with a parenting coach who's coming at this from a non-astrological point of view. Let's see how these two worlds add up. So I will post this now for you guys to think about before that video, and then I'll also post my discussions with Amy on this topic, so we can learn even more about parenting styles and astrology. I hope you'll join me for those future sessions, and also that you will comment, either send me an email or right here in the comment section. I'd love to know your thoughts about astrology and parenting styles. Talk to you soon. Stay well.